No,
Really?
yeah, it looks
Probably my,
squatchy.
probably my dog. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Researchers Report. Hope everybody's doing all right out there tonight. I've got no Kerry tonight, but stepping in is Iron Dogger Jackie. How are you doing, Jackie?
Doing good. Doing good. We're out at the park again.
You are?
How are you, Daniela?
Doing good. I'm doing good. Um, our guest tonight, if anyone thinks they're having deja vu, yes, this exactly this us three here on Sunday night on Sunday Encounters with our guest Jami King. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I did say we'd have you back because you came on Sunday Encounters and you went through a couple of the encounters that you had. Really interesting as well because it's in the same spot. But you do a lot of research. And I said it would be great for you to come on a researcher's report because you are a serious researcher. You do collect data and evidence, and you're a logical thinker. I'm interested in what you do. So, um, tell us a little bit about um, this. Sorry, this one. This is your Pennsylvania Sasquatch research.
Yeah, that's Pennsylvania Sasquatch Research. That was Tony Merkel started that with the confessional just to get like Bigfoot stuff going, and then Tony had too much going on, so he made Dave Groves and Amy Copeland and myself administrators. So we just basically go in and sometimes put up reports and usually just moderate what's going on.
Mm.
And then I have another one that's just my own and it's real small.
Right. Okay. How do people reach out to you then? How have you managed to do that? Be a place for people to contact
I
you.
usually get reports, like I'll get reports with the PSR, but I'll get them also on my little um, local thing that I call my micro study. So it's basically the Shenango where I basically research and I live. So all those reports come in there. So that's how I get that information.
Okay. Do you have an area that you specifically research, or do you move around? I mean, how do you go about it?
I mean, I think for me, it was like after my encounter, my original encounter, and then a second encounter at the same location, I just came to the conclusion that you could travel all you want around the country and look for Bigfoot. Like I've been in Alberta, Canada, I've been in different places in the United States, but I realized that if you're going to find answers, it's going to be right where you had your own encounter. So that's why I pretty much micro that area. So I'm really well aware of the surroundings and I kind of document a lot where my encounter happened. So I've made it like my home. So when I'm out in the woods, I know what's there. I know what's different. I know what's different seasons, how tracks look in the snow and how tracks look in the mud. So I've just tried to familiarize myself so much with the Shenango. And then I also micro study in a certain area of the Allegheny National Forest where we've had encounters, and Hocking Hills, Ohio. I have a micro study.
Mm. It's a real hotspot, isn't it? All that area, there seems to be a lot
Yeah,
going on.
I mean, Pennsylvania and Ohio are both like really top states for Bigfoot sightings. And I think like when you really think about it, I don't think of Ohio or Pennsylvania as being like a place where you would have Bigfoot, but they're like number 6 and number 7 in the country. And I think Ohio might be higher than Pennsylvania, but their population base is more spread out. So I think people are seeing a lot more like really Minerva, like Minerva, Ohio has a lot of sightings. Really, the whole eastern part of Ohio and western Pennsylvania, and then the center of the state, you get most of the reports.
Mm. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's start with these tracks here that you found. And are you always carrying a kit with you to make casts?
Hopefully, I always do, but that's not always the case because sometimes I'm just hiking and I'm just hiking, and my vehicle might be far away where I'll have the casting material. But this was an area of Shenango that in this time of year it goes down really low, so it's really good, and it's my favorite time to track and look for tracks. And this is something that actually my wife found. So it was a series of prints that we cast, and it was in one localized area where there have been reports. So I found that pretty interesting.
Mm. What do you notice about the difference in tracks, going from like maybe developing growth or male female? What are your thoughts on the differences?
Well, I mean, like when I see Bigfoot prints that come off the West Coast, I think that they're really large. I think that they're in the range of 17 inches and up. Where on the East Coast here, I'm noticing tracks that are much smaller, like in the range of 14, maybe to 16 being the largest. And I think that like that could have something to do with different species and how Bigfoot may be different in different areas, just like primates are different in different areas.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Makes
you'd think,
sense.
wouldn't you, in the swamps as well? They'd have to be
Yeah,
more adapt to living in wet conditions all the time.
right. I mean, I think that, yeah, they would have to adapt to their environment for sure. Like the swamp ape in Florida, maybe a different species than Bigfoot in Washington State or Oregon.
And then the terrain and everything would definitely play a role in their size, and then the availability of access to what kind of food, I guess, would play a big role in that too.
Yeah, and I've noticed this too. Like I think that they come into this area, and I think that it's just this is all just my observations. It's just not there's no facts here. It's just a feeling. But I think that they come into this area and they test how close they can get to humans and human population. And I think on the other show I talked about how it's slightly a playground. Like I notice a lot of structures that seem like it would be something that would be geared towards juvenile Bigfoots. It's just a
That's
feeling though.
interesting.
And I found really small tracks too that would be like a juvenile size.
Okay, and those small tracks near other tracks, or were they by themselves? Because a lot of times people say like they'll see like where there's just like one little print, like they just set them down and then picked
Yes.
them back up, or different things like that.
Right. I mean, just what you said right there. I was at Pymatuning Reservoir, which is connected to the Shenango Reservoir. And my wife and I were hiking on this trail, and we found what looked like a large Sasquatch print, maybe in the size of about 14 inches. That's small compared to like on the West Coast. But we also found a little tiny track right next to it. Like you said, like something picked it up and set it down. So it was like one little print.
Hmm.
That's interesting.
Which is interesting because I mean, like if it's a mother and she's carrying her child on her shoulder or something, they would do that.
Yeah, for any reason, isn't there? I
Mhm.
guess there's a possibility. And those that are jumping from out of somewhere cause different impact, don't they, on the ground, obviously. But I think some of those disappearing tracks are when they are maybe going up into trees or jumping to something, and then, I mean, this supposedly could jump quite far or leap even, but I don't know. These are some of the casts that you've, that's looks big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that cast reminded me of the one cast that's like one of the famous casts. I forget who did it with the injury. Like I feel like that's exposed bone. Like there's an exposed bone and a missing toe, and I found quite a few of those tracks in and around the Shenango. That I believe right there was a handprint. Like it was reaching for clams. Like there was a clam bed in this one area of the Shenango that's like washed out.
Yeah.
And I found what looked like something was laying there and then it was reaching for it. And I actually showed this to somebody at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. And, they told me that they thought that there was sliding involved and they kind of dismissed it. But I didn't take it as a negative because I thought to myself, if something is in mud, it is going to slide. And to me, the way the I'm going to call them fingers. I'm going to call them fingers because it looked like it was reaching. They are sliding downward.
Right. I'm going to try and get them on a bigger screen, and then we can have a really good look. I just need to put them into a little folder here, see if I can do it this way.
Yeah, because I'm trying to look at that, and it almost looks like there's like 6 digits there.
Which is not uncommon in
looking at that? I
Pennsylvania.
don't have my
When you find
glasses.
prints, there can be weird prints, but It could also be overlapping too.
Let me see if
Okay.
I can do this. Get a bigger.
And I know what bear prints are like. They can step into their print, but that doesn't look like a bear print at all. And we do have bear here.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you're gonna know, aren't you? You're gonna know
Oh yeah.
the difference. Hopefully, this will look a bit better if I can do this really quick. Here we go. Hopefully, I can slide through these images. So let me go back actually to. Oh, this was the one that you think is bone then sticking out.
Right. I feel like that's exposed bone.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's interesting, isn't it?
very. Huh.
Maybe that as well is missing there at the top. If that's because there must be a knuckle. I mean, how many would they have? You know, how many do we have in our? There's going to be at least 2, isn't there? Or 1 there maybe. But yeah, that's fascinating.
It is.
They must have injuries, of course, and this is the one that he said you think is the hand. Are you seeing that? Sorry, are you guys seeing?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I should get my glasses though. But yeah, it looks like those look like fingers doing that.
Right. If it was toes, it would be more flat. But this seems like it's bent, like something. It was reaching for clamshells, and I found a stack of clams that were opened up.
Yeah, it's obviously digging into something with
like,
its fingers. Yeah, definitely. This is interesting.
ooh.
Again, that was another what I think is an injury, and also it shows that I'm a terrible caster. Like, I mean, I'm terrible, and I don't have the patience. Like, I have to get it out of the ground quickly, and you know, I'm learning patience.
Right. Okay. Well, it's
But
good
that was an interesting area. That's an area that I frequent often, and I've gifted at this actual location. So I'll leave these little intricate little yarn things in the trees, and I'll come back and they'll be in different configurations. And there was a stream bed that goes through that feeds into the larger part of the Shenango. And right where the stream, you can enter the stream from one side, I saw prints. So I crossed over the stream and I noticed the one print, and then there was another one in the water. So I couldn't cast the one that was in the water, but this was the one that was on the bank.
Right. Okay.
And it's definitely an area that there would be no humans walking barefoot.
Yeah, and that size as well, that shape. I mean, you know, just off
Seems
that,
very unlikely. Right.
definitely. Let me. I might have to put them on a bigger screen again. But you've. Why do you think? Why do you think this is maybe Sasquatch? How big was this?
The largest one that we found was almost 50 feet tall. So
Wow.
when we first found these, like my wife found the very first one, and I would have walked by it and thought that it was some kind of hunter's blind. And then, you know, the more I looked at it, I started looking at it, and there's no way it's used for shelter. And actually, it's illegal in Pennsylvania to use natural wood. You have to have man-made structures for hunting. So this is actually illegal, and this is on Army Corps of Engineer land. So I've talked to like the game commissioner and the Fish and Game and Wildlife people, and you know they're interested in these structures because it is illegal to do this. And I'm currently, I think we're around 14 or 15 that we're watching, the largest one being almost 50 feet tall.
Wow.
Wow. But that doesn't look like something like a Bushmaster would make for a shelter at all. That's what I find really intriguing about some of this. Is that like a bent tree down into that area?
Oh, they're going across.
Yeah. And then all of those stacked onto it?
Well, most of them originate with one bent live tree. So there's a live tree that's bent, and then these other ones are sort of configured in almost a braiding or a plait. And
Like
In the
this.
background, that's my wife. That's not a Sasquatch.
But is that what you mean then about a tree being a live tree bent into that?
Yes.
Interesting.
And like I said, that these really fascinate me, and I know a lot of people look down on them and say that that's some kind of bushcraft type thing, but I don't view them that way because I look for human activity in and around them. So if I see like wrappers or I see beer cans or something, and this is also in an area where there's not really a lot of humans. There's a swamp back here, so I can't rule out human because there could be somebody duck hunting or something, but like I said, the game commissioner and the Fish and Game and Wildlife say that that's illegal, and they want to know that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, why even go to that effort if it's not even practical to use, or like you say, sheltering. Now these are, there's got to be something about these because wood's heavy, isn't it? It's really heavy, and to imagine how something like that has happened.
I find a lot of these. I'm not sure if they're like naturally occurring, but they don't really seem like they would be. It's a study of trees, so you kind of have to study how things fall, and like there's a lot of Les Stroud does a lot of this like studying of how things fall with the weight of snow and stuff, but
Yeah.
a lot of these have an intent to them, so it seems more intentional. And it's just I document it, I'll write it down, I'll write things that are around it, I'll write other shelters, and I'm kind of mapping the shelters where they're at in and around the Shenango, and that's one of my favorites right there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, isn't there?
Yeah.
I see that. Forget that on a big screen. Where was that then? The same place?
So all of these are within probably about a 6-mile radius. So let me see. Like Shenango is 15,000 acres. So there's 15,000 acres out there that I hike. These are all within a 6-mile radius of one another. And like I said, I'm mapping them. And this was a really fascinating one because there's a railroad track and then there's a peninsula that goes off from the railroad track. So there's really not a whole lot of access unless you are on the railroad or you cross. And there's no real hiking paths back there. And when we first found this, it was like a super find. And I've actually gone out there and spent the night, like stayed the night in this area. And I give all of these things a name. Like I don't usually tell people where they're at. My wife knows where I'm at, and I usually leave her a message or a note where I'm going to be when I go out. And I give them names. Like I give them, like I'm really into the Ramones, so I'll call this something like Blitzkrieg Bop or something, just for my notes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
They are, just what on earth would someone build something like that for?
And that's not oh, sorry, Daniela. Is that an area where there's like runoff or where a lot of snow and the waters like come together, and usually there's a lot of debris in those areas that kind of makes some interesting patterns, but it's usually from all the snowfall and everything just kind of coming to an end, but that doesn't quite look like that.
What's weird about it is it's an area it's land that's kind of cut off by the railroad, so it goes down in and then it kind of rises up, so like it's sort of a ridge line, so there's a ridge line that goes back through there, and then part of this shelter was built into a little swamp, so there's like this little swamp where it's built into it. And I thought that was kind of weird that there was that the structure actually goes into the actual swamp. And there's some of these too that I haven't mentioned, and I don't even know if I sent photos of them, but I'll have a structure and there'll be these dead animals that are close to it or near it, or they're hanging in the tree. It's very Blair Witch and very it's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Strange One says, interesting, as I've seen TP structures made of 4 or 5 sticks like this, seen them change width over time. Key thing, they're older sticks and no bark. Are you finding stuff changing? And
yes. I mean, sometimes there'll be no changes, but then there's other times where we'll go back out and there'll be a smaller structure near it, which is really, it kind of blows my mind. It's almost like an adult structure. And then you'll find this little, maybe like 3 or 4 foot structure that mirrors the larger one. Like
What is
that?
if you, I think with a Bigfoot too, you have to use your imagination, and like Einstein says, imagination is a very big part of like learning. And I think that you have to use your imagination. And if there's an adult structure, like let's say they're making something as a form of communication, why wouldn't the smaller Sasquatch also try to mimic what their adult um, is doing?
Mm.
Or even as a lesson, like to make sure that they're
Yeah.
understanding, how to form it even. Yeah, that's intriguing.
I mean, I've
There's a lot.
always, well, I mean, I don't know how I feel about structures. I know some of them are so big, it's hard to work out how these things are built, by man. But I just when you think that they're such an elusive creature and they don't want to be seen, why would they be leaving like a calling card of big sticks when they don't want to be seen, or that's the kind of impression you get? I mean, I don't know if they're leaving evidence of themselves around them if they're so
But it's
careful
easy
of
to
not getting.
overlook, though.
But
Like that kind of stuff would be easy. Like all of my life, I just looked at that as deadfall, nothing, But like even in the area across from the cabin, I've always joked about, oh, this would be so-called perfect Sasquatch territory, and I've gone over there, and when you go in there, like Jamie's explaining a lot, and then you can see the difference, and that's when it gets really intriguing because I've seen what a squirrel can do to an area, and they'll sit there and gnaw on branches, even big thick branches. Well, they're Alaska branches up there I'm talking about, and they will make all these different routes through the woods, and I've watched that take place out, for hours out the cabin, and they can do some incredible things, but they're definitely not bringing logs over and stacking them and
Right.
forming them and things like that, and so when you look at like the live bowed tree into it, like, yeah, it's okay to explain like snow load and things like that, but when you see the same thing in areas that don't have snow load, that don't have frost, that don't have those things, then that's where, like, again, it's patterns. And I really think really seeing these patterns is going to help us see something, whether they're markers or some kind of, like you said, Daniela, signatures, something.
Right. And like I'm really into different researchers, and I like researchers that share. So like I said, there was a woman in Canada, her name's Leanne Carnegie. She's been documenting a lot of these structures that are very, very similar, almost identical. And like if you took and looked at a map and you went straight down from Ontario, Canada, in through New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, and you find these structures that are almost identical, and it would be like Salvador Dali. Like, let's say Salvador Dali's art, it looks very similar, and that's kind of what they're like.
Oh, that is interesting. Huh. That is
Yeah.
really intriguing.
I mean, sort of, you have to look at everything with a different mindset too. Like, you could have the mindset of a hiker and you're just out there hiking. You could have the mindset of a hunter and you're on that frequency. But when I'm in the woods and I'm documenting, I'm really just observing, and I'm just really looking at nature as best that I know how. And like I said, I use a lot of laws of attraction and laws of nature and universal laws in all of my research. And it's never let me down. Like, I feel good about it.
Yeah. But I mean,
That's really
yeah, I'm just saying there must be loads of people who just don't even know about Bigfoot, who walk past those things and don't even think twice about anything other than someone making it. I guess I don't know. If you're not aware of stuff, you don't really take it in, do you, or question things. So
Right.
I don't know. It is fascinating. Here's another. This was the one that was shoved in. Is it part of this one? Is it the same?
This is a different area. That's in Chenango right there, and then the other one is in the Allegheny National Forest.
Okay. Oh, we'll go back to that in a minute.
So that was in the Allegheny National Forest, and that's an area where there's a group of us that are pretty tight Bigfoot researchers. We continue to go to this area, and we have different techniques that we use. But this was just one day I was hiking in an area where we've had activity and we've had like Sasquatch come into the camp. And our one friend that really, you should interview him, but his name's Brian Davis. He had his tent impaled with something like a tree branch, something. They recorded the whole night. So we set up recorders around the camp and something impaled his tent.
Oh, wow. We were talking about that the other night, weren't we? About people, hide in these tents or go to sleep thinking he never walks over them or into them. And then to have that happen, that must be terrifying.
Right.
The other thing too is where that tree was jammed into another tree and the ball root is sticking out. That's an area where we camped, and there's like a access area where they're doing logging and clear cutting in the Allegheny National Forest. And there's a metal gate that's at the one area where the logging occurs. And we were sleeping in our tents the one night, and we kept hearing this clicking, like something was clicking and hitting the metal. So I got up, and in the middle of the night, and another researcher went with me. And I don't know why, but every time that we would walk and we would stop, the clicking would stop. We would start walking and the clicking would continue. And I remember I went up to the gate. We finally made it up to this gate where the metal clicking was going on. And I documented it, but there were metal signs, and it looked like something was ripping in them and pulling them back. So that was kind of interesting. And, like every time I go to that area, I kind of like try to camp near there and listen for that again. I haven't heard it again, but it was just weird that one night we were there and that kept happening.
Yeah, definitely.
So there was an intelligence, like it was something was making that noise as we walked, and then we would stop. The clicking would stop. As we started walking, it would start again.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Strangeland here makes a good point. Is ancient stone structures align with the stars as above, so below? Are you documenting in any way these structures are pointing?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I'll write in my notebook like what direction they're pointing, and like I said, I'm keeping a map of like where they're at, so I can really look at the different directions that they're going in. And for the most part, what I'm finding, and this is just me observing, it might not mean anything, but most of these structures point in the direction of the Allegheny National Forest, so they're pointing more eastward.
Right.
So where we live is we have forest, and then like you continue maybe an hour into Pennsylvania, and there's old growth forest, which is the Allegheny National Forest, and that's like 500 and some thousand acres of forest. Like
Awesome.
Pennsylvania was called Penn's Woods because it was big woods. William Penn was the founder.
Right. Okay. I never knew that. Yeah, I'm just going to put another. Someone had some questions. If you put your questions in caps, because there's so many. It seems to be going really fast tonight. If you put them up in capitals, because some people are making some good points. Now that's a big one.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a really big one. That's my wife standing there. Really, I don't see a human making that. I just don't.
How's the big one supported? How is the big one supported at the top? Is it in a tree?
That was it was kind of like a deadfall. So the other stuff is like intricately woven together. And I think maybe I included some other photos of how it's woven together. But there's no way that I see a human doing that, and that's always in the back of my mind. Did a human make this, and for what purpose?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a standard shelter, is it? Just like an overnight emergency. I need to stay somewhere and build something. Like, we're staying for the weekend.
And then you've got, would they get a fine? Like you said, it was against the law. So is there fines involved? Like what would happen?
Yeah, there are fines involved. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Are they hefty? Are they, like?
I'm saying they're around like $250 fine.
Oh, see, yeah, that's enough to deter people from wanting to do that.
Yeah.
That is a big one, though, isn't it? That is definitely a big one. Somebody wanted you to expand a little bit on the clicking Um,
So the
how
clicking,
far away was the clicking? How far away were these structures from where people can access?
well, the clicking was in the Allegheny National Forest, so it's on a logging road. It's a private logging road, so really it's private land, and like we have access through the owners to go there, and basically it's a gate, and it was maybe about a fourth of a mile from where we were camping, so you could hear this really loud. You could hear it very loud. And then we started walking towards the clicking, and we kept walking towards it. We would stop. We had our headlights on, turn the lights out. And, the closer we got, the louder it got. And then, I mean, I did this crazy thing that I probably wouldn't do again either, is I did this primate type aggressive behavior with my little bat that I had with me, and I hit it on the ground, and we actually heard something like a vocalization at that point. And I've heard the Ohio howl in that exact location too.
So it's again, these patterns. We said it the other night, didn't you? In the drawing Bigfoot, there's stuff going on, isn't there? There has to be a pattern with something. It's just understanding what it is. But there's definitely connections all the time. Sorry, I think we've got like a bot in the chat. I've tried to delete it. If someone can just check that out, please. I did have some questions here. Miss Lacey, question: have you ever researched Rockton Mountain in Clearfield County?
No, I have never. No. I've been to Clearfield County, so I've been to Black Moshannon State Forest, and like it was a little offsetting because there were rattlesnakes, and I was not prepared for that. Like I'm hiking through ferns that are up over your knees, and they're wrapping around your knees. So the whole time I'm thinking, oh man, rattlesnakes. So that's a higher elevation. I haven't really been to that area. No.
Michelle says, Jamie, do you feel any negative vibes in your outings or disorientation or anything like that? Have you ever been hit with any, what they call infrasound or AMF?
I usually try to put off good vibes. Like I try to be myself, so I put out good vibes. But I've been in areas where I've had a negative feeling, and usually like I'll gauge my dog's behavior. So my dogs, there's a certain area where there's 3 shelters all in a row, and I've documented those, and my dogs won't go into that area. So that's always a negative feeling to me.
What do you think that is? Just could be anything. A bear, or are they sensitive to stuff like that?
Oh yeah, my dogs are. I only have one dog now, but my dogs at the time, they both would react the same way in this one area. And like I said, I give different names to different areas, so they're always usually Ramones or Misfit songs. And
That's awesome.
so they just don't like it, and I won't go there.
Yeah, well,
that's interesting. Yeah, because I came up on an area tonight when I was just out before the show, and my dog didn't want anything to do with that little spider. No, dragging me the other way.
The craziest thing that I found in the woods, I was hiking, and I was in one of my research areas, and I came across this pentagram. Like somebody had made this pentagram in the middle of the woods, and that freaked me out more than anything. I was like, oh no. Like
some witchcraft going on or something.
Yeah, I didn't like it, so I wouldn't go back there. And my friend Sparky, who researches with me, he's like, let's go back. Like he was so excited to go back and see it. And I think he peed in the pentagram, and I'm like, this is bad juju. Like, don't do that.
Oh yeah, that's probably not a good thing to do. Maximus, no, I don't think they need shelters. I think people say structures when they mean shelters, or maybe structures is maybe a shelter. I don't know.
They're not really structures. No. I think they're more of a form of communication, or they could be directional, like just some kind of directional thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's puzzling, isn't it, what these things are? I'm
Well,
not sure what you're saying. Have you ever? I think you might have to put that one up again, Miss Lacey. Can't work that out. What she's saying there. Do you think they're hiding caves? Have you got struck caves out there?
Yes, we do. Like, there's an area that I go to. It's called Pig's Hollow. So there's caves in that area where the Native Americans have petroglyphs in them. I took a Bigfoot report from this woman who lives on this road called Clay Furnace Road, and she was on her horse, and her horse was reacting to an albino deer that was running towards her. And she said that she went to reach out and she could almost touch this albino deer. And on the other side of this ravine, this Sasquatch stood up and made this vocalization. So I went out with her and we were researching, and it's actually clay furnace. So they have these furnaces, like these old coal mines and underground caverns that are out in that area. So there's a lot of that in Western Pennsylvania and West Virginia, the caves and the coal mines. So you have all these abandoned shafts.
that's quite an encounter, though. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There was a wow.
I mean, to see an
Yeah,
albino
'cause-
deer is pretty fascinating anyway.
Right. And then to have them both timing like that. Wow, that was fascinating. And so the cave systems, are they long, and are they all of them mapped, or is there a lot of them that remain unmapped? Do you know?
I'm sure most of them are mapped that are underground coal mines. I'm sure those are. Like, even where I live, there's coal mine shafts that go underneath my property and down to another area that I don't think that they knew about. They were redoing like something with the sewer system in where I live, and they called me in the house and they said, "Did you ever see this like shaft down here?" When they were digging in my yard, and I looked and I'm like, "No, I had no idea that was there. Like, it was right behind my garage."
Oh, wow. Huh. Yeah, because there's a lot of people, I think it's called splunking, where they go like just
Yeah.
find these little holes, and and they find some amazing cave systems. Yeah, it's intriguing.
It makes you wonder, though. I mean, the size of them, because
Yeah.
a lot of times these caves, the minings as well, they can be, there's only so much they can fit in, isn't there? So much space. So I don't know. It makes sense for me that they'd live in caves, but then if these things are 10 foot, 11 foot, how are they getting in there? I know some of these caves are big, but a lot of these mining things aren't that big, aren't is it quite more narrow, aren't they? So I don't know.
I mean,
Anything's
Pennsylvania in general has a lot of the glaciation that came from the Ice Age, where there's a lot of boulders and rocks that have formed, and there's caves that I'm sure people don't really know about, especially the Allegheny National Forest.
Yeah.
and they shut up a lot of caves anyway, don't they? They kind of, but who's to say there's not other entrances in other places that they've created themselves, or you just don't know. Especially if it's in limestone and stuff like that. You can create anything under those if you get under there. So let's go back to a couple more of your images. Was this a gift or something you found?
Yeah, this is a gifting area that I had, and I had left something, and then when I came back, this was placed under a tree branch in the tree, like on the tree.
Wow.
And that's happened a few times with like mostly organic things like mushrooms, feathers, and there's a strange element too. Like I say, if you use your imagination, that's pretty important, because nobody's going to have the right answer, but why not just use your imagination and think like a Sasquatch, or think like how they might think. And I've been following a lot of the indigenous trail systems in Pennsylvania. So the Native Americans had these trails where people go out and they look for arrowheads and stuff. And that's where I'm finding a lot of this stuff. And I feel like, and this is just me, it might not mean anything, but I feel like Sasquatch too, and they have a name within every indigenous tribe. Like the Allegheny National Forest got its name from the Allegui, which were these hairy giants that lived with the Indians. I feel like their ceremonial beliefs kind of became part of the DNA of the land. And, I don't know. It's just how I think. Like even these structures have a wigwam feel to them.
Yeah. I mean, you could be right. This is the thing, isn't it? We don't know. So why not follow leads or clues to possibilities? It makes more sense to go off folklore and stuff like that than to, just pull something out the air. Were these left for you as well? These are interesting.
Yeah, they're just little structures that I left one, came back, they would be moved. And I'm well aware like raccoons can move things, but there's an intent to a lot of it.
Yeah. Are you finding similar? What did you think about? Why have you used blue? Is because a lot of people say they're attracted to blue. Are you doing that for that reason?
No, I don't think there was a specific purpose with it. It was just what I found.
Yeah.
But I do hear that. I've heard that before. But I've also people say the mylar balloons are usually blue, but I think that's a pretty common color.
Which was the before and which was the after?
So it would be the one on the left would be the first one. The one on the right would be the second one.
Okay, so you had 4 sticks there.
Yeah.
And then they crossed 2 of them and then took 2 away.
Yes.
And then put 2 little... Oh, wait, no, there's 6. Okay, I see the other 2 down there. Interesting.
Yes,
and there may be not... This could be a human. I don't know. Like, I don't have cameras set up on them.
Right.
And every time I've used trail cams, I've had strange things happen. Like, I don't know if I sent you photos of them, but I set up these trail cams at this one location. 2:00 in the morning, I had 3 images appear on it. And these 3 images were these weird light anomalies that I didn't know what they were. So I contacted the trail cam company and I said, have you ever had these anomalies show up on your trail cams? And they said no.
Right.
But they were really weird. It almost looked like an eyeball, like the iris of an eye had come up and looked right into it, but it had this like blue fluorescent look to it. But you could see like veins in it. Then there was another one that had this green glowing, like really strange, bizarre. But like I chalk it off as like high strangeness. I don't know.
Yeah, let me have another quick look through because I don't remember seeing that. But if there is, I'll try and bring it up. I'm just having a look through them images. Just give me 1 second.
It's really interesting because we get a lot of weird things that happen with our trail camera, and there's a lot of light bursts and all sorts of awkward, and I kept bringing my trail camera back. I must have returned that thing 5 times. It's like, something's wrong with this camera.
Another thing too is I have these recordings that I recorded in the Allegheny National Forest, and it was on a recorder that records infrasound. I'm pretty sure I didn't send it to you, and it's really considered kind of woo, like outside, wildly out of the ordinary woo. But I recorded in the Allegheny National Forest where we had activity, and I asked questions on a ghost hunting level, like, can you tell me the name of this forest? And on the recorder, in English, it said Allegheny, pure as day. Like, and then I said, can you make a vocal? Like I said, I'll say something like, I'm going to make this sound and I want you to repeat it. And I'll do like, oh, and then on the recorder, that same sound will come back.
Wow.
Oh,
so, like, I'm not that person that's out there thinking 100% that this is purely physical animal, because my encounter was physical, but there was also the spiritual element with like I talked about before, like my dad and that prayer that I said. So that was very spiritual and very personal to me. So I'm not afraid to research in a way that's woo. And to me, it's a little bit more of a challenge, and I'm okay being wrong, but I'm still going to do what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to keep.
Yeah, but there's a lot
and I'm
of...
not a scientist, so, like, who cares if I'm wrong? I
Right.
have no peer evaluation or anything.
Right, but there's a lot of people that are having these experiences, so just to throw them away and dismiss them seems wrong,
Right.
Like, I don't know, I feel like I repeat myself a lot, but I think we have to allow the data to speak, and until we get all of it, it's
Yes.
just going to be corrupted,
Thank you for saying that. Yes.
as someone that's dealt with data all my life and producing results from data, you can't have confirmation biases. You can't have any, like, you have to pull every bit of it in, even as, as much as it doesn't seem to fit, it may have a place. It may be the bigger piece of the puzzle than you could have ever imagined.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, like you even mentioned it, the quantum and, of things. And the more that we learn about quantum physics and, I think we're starting to expand, our knowledge as a whole and start to accept some more of these, what would be considered woo, I guess, as more, scientifically based, evidence-based, energy and all of that,
I mean, so just imagine, we'll just use imagination. Let's say that I take this recorder out and I try to get patterns, and these patterns are always an intelligent response. That's a pattern. Like, that can be
Right.
documented.
Right.
It may not be explainable. Like, I may not know where this vocalization is coming from, but at least I have that sound quality, that infrasound that's something below 28Z. Because those recordings, I took them to my friend's recording studio because he's very excited about like Bigfoot stuff. And I would take all my recordings to him and he would play it in his loud music studio and his daughter would be sitting there listening. And it was always fascinating to me that he would look at the recordings, but he would look at like human hearing and then what's below our hearing. And all of those responses came below 20 Hz, which is infrasound.
Oh, see, that stuff is very intriguing. And, I think we've got a lot to learn. We have so much more to learn on the subject than anybody can claim to know. And, and like research like you're doing is extremely important because you're starting to show these patterns exist. And when people can go out, and I'm even intrigued now to go out with a recorder and maybe do that some night and just see what I get. I'm not a researcher. I'm definitely an enthusiast, and I love trying researchers different techniques just to see if they can be replicated, because that is part of science, is being able to replicate these things. And I
don't
think
be
it's
afraid
all
to
very
be wrong.
important.
Just don't be afraid to be wrong either. Like, it's
Right.
it's okay to just experiment with it, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Exactly, right. And we should just be a little bit more open to experiments and others' ideas, and just we don't want to be so open-minded we can run a truck right through, but at the same time, we still need to allow some more of this data to find its way.
Yeah, definitely. I've managed to get some more images up, and
Right.
I've got some of these. I mean, this is interesting. Can you see that? Sorry, can you guys see that? Yeah.
Is that wrapped all the way around it?
Yeah.
Those were braided, so it was like a plaiting.
Whoa.
They braid it.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? What's I've got a couple of pieces. What sort of tree was that? What sort of wood is that?
That was white pine. So whatever did this, there were like 9 branches that were twisted out of a tree. So they were twisted out of this tree, and I'm holding it to show my hand, to show you that there's no way that a human could have that kind of torque to twist a branch out of a tree. There's no way we would have that strength.
No.
And that doesn't really imitate weather either. Like if the weather, like if there's hurricane force winds, we'll rip things apart and twist things, but not usually like that. Wow, that's intense.
We saw that. What did you find here? These were deliberately put there.
So this was interesting. I mean, it's a pine grove, so there's these pines. But what was interesting about it is they were brought in like something was bedding down in them.
Like a nesting area, or just
like a nesting area, yeah.
Wow. Do you pick up any smells, any hairs? Have you picked up, have you collected any hairs at all?
Well, that's the thing. I've never really had a smell that's been associated with Bigfoot. And as far as hairs, I have collected hairs, but it's really hard to get somebody to, test them. And I still have them. Like I'll keep them in a little baggie. I'm
Yeah.
more about like I just collect stuff and I keep it, and like maybe one day I'll have it tested. I don't know.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what it is, wouldn't it? How have I lost that folder?
And my friend's a taxidermist, so he'll give me samples of like fox hair, coyote, deer, bear. So then I have a reference to compare it to.
Yeah. Why can't I move on to the next picture? Something's happening here. Is that it? No. Sorry about this. I've been technical problems tonight.
It really likes this picture.
Yeah, I need to just try and do it again. Sorry, I don't know why it's not being a bit more. There we go. Let's try it again now. There, I found it now.
So, do you ever find prints around these structures and things? Oh,
yes, I have found prints. Yeah, this was a really fascinating one because they're always near like water. So this is almost in a straight line to another structure that's maybe about a mile away from this. And I'm like I said, I'm mapping them, and there's no real rhyme or reason to these, and there's no reason that it should be where it's at. And this I've documented in different seasons, so I'm documenting the different changes that happens with it. And I probably sent photos, but in some of these structures, inside of the structure is another structure, and I'll call it like a wheel. So there's this weird, intricate little web that's made of sticks, and it's like it almost looks like a dream catcher.
Oh, I've got it. I've got it in this folder. So,
wow. And if it was a chain, it would leave a mark. Like any kind of equipment leave marks on trees. They don't just, that is,
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's a series. Like in that photo right there, you can see all these tree branches that were pulled out, and then something was trying to bed, like make a nest. So there's like this behind this structure, behind these branches is something on the ground where it was trying to make like a nest.
Wow.
That is interesting.
And this as well. This kind of intricate.
So that's all organic material from the forest floor or canopy of the forest. And, like I would have walked by this and thought to myself, that's, nothing. And then you really start looking at it and you're like, this is intricately tied. And I tried to compare it to other knots and stuff. Like I started studying knots. And what was weird about this particular structure with all these tying is it felt like something had fused it. So it was real. There was no real knotting to it, but it felt like something fused to it.
Yeah, it's definitely got knots in it. I mean, if that was like just natural growth around a tree, it would just be round one anyway. It wouldn't be, growing up two trees like that, looking like that.
And so nodding like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now that gives you a scale, doesn't it? Now stood under there, your wife. I mean, that's...
So this where this photo was, I called that the cathedral because it's on this weird area of Shenango, and I walked out there and it almost felt like this spiritual feeling. Like when you walk in there, the light is different. Like it's very different. So I started calling this the cathedral.
Right. Yeah.
Ooh.
I wonder if it's deliberately set for the way the sun comes in or whatever time of day. I mean, it'd be interesting to sit there. I mean, if you've got all day to do it, but to see.
And the positioning.
Who knows? Is that what you're talking about as well?
That's that pinwheel, that thing that I said was like a dream catcher.
Yeah.
There's no reason for that. It's just weirdly there.
Wow.
It's deliberate, isn't it? It's not just thrown down like that. That is a deliberate.
That's deliberate, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to this. What is what you're doing here?
Okay, so this is a recorder that I use. This recorder sold for like $16 when it was brand new. It sells for over 3,000 now, and
Wow.
it was used in ghost hunting. Ghost hunters found out that you could catch below human hearing like 20 Hz. So it's a recorder that I use to capture infrasound, and I think the feather was just something that was left in the area where I was doing recording. Like it ended up in this. A lot of times I'll do recordings and then I'll come back later and there'll be a feather jammed into the tree where I was recording.
All right. Interesting.
Oh, that is intriguing. Hmm.
Yeah. We'll have to get you
Like
back
turkey.
with audio and see
Yeah.
what you picked up.
Oh, right. That is interesting, that pattern at the end.
Yeah, those tree branches, there's no way that a human could pull that out of a tree. No way. And I don't even really see nature doing that, but what made this even more intriguing was, like I said, something was trying to make a shelter or an area to bed down with.
Hmm. That the commonality, like you said, and the patterns of finding these different bedding areas and along, oh, I think we lost Daniela, along ridge lines and different areas or down, like when you said when you found the one area, it was down in like a ravine, right?
Yes.
Are you finding bedding areas and different things like it in like different type of terrain and different locations where it would seem feasible for those things to be like, like I don't know, it seems like somewhere where you want to be bedded down is somewhere where you would be more safe and not well open areas and things like
Well,
that.
as a human, if I was going to live in the woods, I would try to find some place that was like guarded from the wind. I would probably
Right.
like the pines because pine would be soft and all of that. But these I'm finding in near swamps, which I don't really see a human wanting to sleep near a swamp. First of all, I think of snakes and stuff like that, but it's bizarre, like the locations that I find them, but they're in really interesting alignments.
That is really intriguing. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that, and just trying to, if more researchers look at the positioning maybe of these structures, it's hard to say like which direction they're facing or those kind of things. But if they are, like if it seems like they're facing in a direction, that would be interesting to note. And then like where, as which direction the sun would be in position with those things and moon or all the different things like that. Like, hey, welcome back.
Yeah, my internet went off at a crucial time.
I was worried it was me for a sec.
I was talking and no one was saying anything, and I'm not looking at this screen. I'm looking at the image screen, and I thought, why aren't they saying anything? I talked about audio. We'll have to have you back because you've captured a lot of audio as well, haven't you? And
Yes.
that would be great to listen to that sometime. But you are going to be coming back for Drawing Bigfoot in a couple of weeks, which will be very interesting as well. Because it's not a Bigfoot, actually. You saw something different, an unknown
Well, I
creature.
mean, like what I saw is something when I was 17 years old back in 1987. So years and years of thinking about what I saw, and then I had my Bigfoot encounter. Completely, really, kind of forgot about it, and then I thought this could be related. And then when you asked me to, if there was anyone that would come on the show, and then I came up with Dave Groves for you, then I realized, like I saw something that I've always wanted somebody to draw, and why not?
Yeah, because Larry will draw, not just anything, but he has drawn one for Donnie Miller. I don't know if I can pull it up really quick, because Donnie saw something years ago that he can't explain what it was, but it had an eye missing. If anyone's watched his Drawing Bigfoot,
Wow.
I must have it up here somewhere.
That was a good one.
Yeah, definitely.
They're all really good.
His drawings are good.
Yeah, they
Mhm.
are, aren't they? Can't believe I can't find that one. It's got to be here somewhere, pretty near. But it's going to be good because the one you saw was very interesting description. Won't give too much away now because I don't want to spoil it for folks. But this was the one of Donnie Miller's that he saw this thing with an eye missing and kind of, you know, mashed up stuff going on there.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, so it'll be fascinating to see what yours look like. Look, we have come to the end of the hour. There's like so much more to cover with you, so you're definitely going to be a regular. Might not do it 2 nights on the trot, but you know, we'll definitely have you back in a couple of weeks for Drawing Bigfoot. But thanks so much for coming on and sharing what you've been finding. It's fascinating, and you know, any of it could be Bigfoot. We just don't know, do we? And it's worth looking into. It's worth looking at
Right.
this stuff and getting people's opinions, and who knows, maybe one day we'll have the answers. But once again, thanks Jackie for joining me tonight.
Yeah.
Last minute, so I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Pretty sure there's going to be a late show on Friday with Kerry, and tomorrow night I'll be doing another Encounter Hub. It's where people meet to talk about their experiences, who don't want to come online, who don't want to be on a show. We don't do it live. We just do it in a private place, like you're seeing now, but it's not broadcasted. I'm going to put my email up if anyone wants to join us. Send me an email and I'll send you out a link. It's on tomorrow night, 5 till 7, 6:30 Central. And the last one we did was really, really good. And we had we talked about a lot more than what we would do live. It was a much more relaxed atmosphere. We had some great discussions. So I hope some people get in touch and will come and join us. But until then, folks, everyone take care, and I'll see you all soon. Good night.